Welcome to the Brain People Podcast, a show where four mental health experts team up to bring you practical tools for overcoming mental health challenges. The Brain People don't replace your doctor or therapist, but we will give you some extra tools to help you on your journey. So join us as we fight mental illness, one episode at a time.
Welcome to the Brain People Podcast. My name is Dr. Katie Cruz. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and today we have a very special guest with us.
Hi, I'm Johanna Loumber. I'm a certified health and wellness coach. And I'm here to share what has been my life during the last few years.
Yeah, so your profession fits really well with this episode and with this podcast in general, but we're going to really look to your story specifically and how, one thing, I listened to it not too long ago at just a random event, and here we are because I was just so inspired, and I thought it'd be so wonderful for our listeners to also be inspired by how you have been able to smile when suffering. So Johanna, I'll just let you kind of take the lead in starting to share your story, and I'll ask some specific questions that can really highlight how you've been able to cope and overcome the many difficulties in your life.
Sure. So 10 years ago, I started having different symptoms, pain and things that seem to look like laryngitis and fevers. And it was really a search for what is it that I have. After my first hospitalization, I was diagnosed with a rheumatological disease. I started having treatment, and that treatment involved lowering my immune system. We started changing from treatment to treatment. Things were not going well. The fevers started getting more frequent, and the pain started just ramping up, and it was really difficult to deal with it. And it just seems that things were not working out the way you expect. You have a diagnosis, you start doing what the doctor tells you to do. I was already very health conscious, so I thought I was doing everything, and things were not going the way they were supposed to go. So we tried different things. We tried allopathic medicine, we tried naturopathic medicine, and things were just going worse and worse. So at some point, we just started to look outside the box and see if there was any other reason why the treatments were not working, and what we were doing was not giving me the result of no pain or less pain. It was just going worse and worse.
How long so far? Give us a span of time, because I know a lot of this is probably happening not just from one day to the next. How long?
A year and 8 months before we decided to go to an infectious disease doctor. And I had to do blood testing, extensive blood testing. I had been traveling to Europe, to South America, and I got bitten many times. So that was something that the doctor said it could be something that was not from here, that I caught, during my travels. So after that extensive set of blood work, they recognized that I had two infectious diseases that were matching perfectly the symptoms that I had.
Okay, so far, a year and 8 months of just misdiagnosis, which led to mistreatment and just getting worse and worse and worse. And then finally, something else.
Yeah. And, when you have an infection, you want to have your immune system strong and working, but that was not the case. I was actually given immunosuppressants, and so that made it really very difficult for the doctors to get a hold of the infections, because there has already been a year and 8 months where things were just progressing.
So the misdiagnosis led to this mistreatment that actually made your condition worse. So it's not only that it wasn't getting better, it was getting worse.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, for example, after I had my first pill for antiparasitary drug, I was I couldn't walk. Next day, like I took it in the evening. I remember the next day, I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. It was amazing. And the doctors were kind of expecting something like that, but not as severe as it was. And that then started a whole lot of other different treatments and different modalities. And we tried like everything that came our way just to make things better. But at this point, things had already progressed in such a way that it was very difficult. I was having transfusions very often. So many hospital stays, I cannot even remember how many.
Wow.
And the last one lasted 4 months and a half. And during this one, I had a septic shock while I was at the hospital, which it was just such a blessing because I had all the help that I needed. If I would have been at home, I don't think that, help would have arrived at the right time to get me through it. So they had to do a tracheostomy, a laparostomy, and other things just to save my life. And at this point, obviously, I was in ICU. I was hooked up to something that is called ECMO, that probably people have heard of it after COVID, but at that time, this was pre-COVID. So it was not even every hospital had it. And the chances of somebody getting out of ECMO because of a septic shock were like 15%.
Wow.
And at that time, and it was just a very, very daring experience. Of course, at some point when I had the septic shock, I don't remember how it happened. I'm so thankful about that.
Yeah.
That I don't have to deal with that. But of course, my family had to deal with that, and they had to come from overseas to see me for the last time. That's what the doctor said. And I cannot even think, how is that, when you receive that phone call about the person that you love, and you're hearing that, if you don't come in the next 24 hours, you may not see her alive again. So they had to go through a lot. It was not just me.
Yeah, let's just pause for a moment. How is your experience kind of emotionally throughout this whole journey thus far, right? Because you've mentioned the just ongoing just questions and answers and looking for hope, and then also at the point of death. So how was your mental health? How was your emotions throughout this process?
Well, I had a very, very strong support system, and that helped a lot. My family, there were some close friends. At just like the year before the septic shock, I was essentially bedbound. So everything happened in my room. Like when people visited, it was in my room. When everything was there, birthdays and special occasions, were there. So support system was extremely important for me to have, some grasp of this is, I can continue, I can move on. But there were 2 instances in which I had morbid thoughts, like very clear in my mind. I remember just knowing exactly what I was supposed to do to just end it and to take my life away. And I'm just so thankful for at those 2 specific moments, I was with someone that I could trust, those thoughts that I could just say, let's just stop and let's just take care of this right now, because I know I really don't want this.
So that's really key, right? For anyone, regardless of the situation, because some people might say, well, I can't really relate from a chronic illness perspective, but anyone can relate with being so overwhelmed with their circumstance that they could have morbid thoughts. And you just shared a very practical little lesson and advice of surround yourself with people, right, that are really supportive, that you can trust, and then have the courage to tell them, because that can be hard itself.
Yes, and I'm very thankful that I took that decision at that moment. And this is also when choice comes into the picture, because and it's not just that you have the support system available, it's also that you choose to get a hold of it.
It's very
And
true.
when I'm talking support system, it's not just definitely your family, your friends, your close friends, but also like physical therapists, were have been throughout my journey essential for me, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally, to have a good perspective and a good mindset, around it all. So I think it's also recognizing that you have a choice. Even when I was bedbound, even when I was barely able to move myself, even to go to a wheelchair, it was like I was just so stiff. So um, I was just skin and bones. It was a really sad sight. But at the same time, inside of me, it's like I knew this is me. This is still me. I know I don't look like I used to look, but this is still me, and I didn't want it. I took a hold of that, of who I am. And I think that was also very helpful. Like
Yeah.
my identity has been changing, through the different stages of my illness and then rehabilitation. But just recognizing that I'm Johanna, I'm a human being. I know who I am. I know what I like to do. I just grab a hold of those things and kind of to keep me stable
Yeah.
when things around me are just spinning.
Yeah.
And my spirituality has been also that has positively influenced my mental health in terms that it has shown me the need to stay real and to recognize this is real. At some points, I was thinking, is this a bad dream? I want to wake up. And then, I heard some time ago this thing like mental health is that commitment to reality. And I think that's very important, to realize, no, this is my life today, and I need to just ground myself in today and just make the best out of it.
Yeah. And that's really powerful because the circumstances itself, you could think about being bedbound, of like having that belief, I'm helpless, I'm powerless, right? The bedbound, the illness of not knowing and for dragging on for so long, it would be easy to believe I don't have choices, right? Doctors have choices. People around me had choices, but I don't. But you stayed grounded with, I will always have a choice. We all do. And that choice allowed you to then tap into the resources around you, including the resource that's constant of having your connection with God.
Definitely. And the people around me had that connection as well. So that made it even easier for me in a way to be able to share what's going on in my mind, the thoughts that I was dealing with, the feelings that I was dealing with. And that has been also a process. I think all this has also helped me to be able to recognize the feelings that I have, put a name to them, and just say, it is okay. It is. And that has helped me a lot also in dealing with other people, because when they are feeling something, before I used to say, oh, this is a bad emotion or this is a bad feeling. Now I understand, the circumstances are such that it just kind of gives you the right to feel in a certain way.
Yeah, it's the reality, as you said.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to deny what I'm feeling, but at the same time, I'm not just going to take it, I'm going to recognize it mm-hmm. and see, okay, what can I do to make things better for me?
Yeah.
To just, what can I do today? What choices can I do today and every day so that my reality gets a little bit closer to what I want, to what I would like, and just that sense of doing your best gives you also a peace of mind that, you can just sleep at night, at peace because you have done your best with what you have. Now I am on a wheelchair, but back then I was bedbound. What can I do today that will make the best out of what I have?
Let's continue with the story. I have so many questions, but you were mentioning that you were at the point of death.
Yes. So that was like in a period of a month that I was in ICU and ECMO, and the doctors didn't think that I was going to make it. I was in an induced coma, just to allow things to heal. The machines were taking care of all the vital stuff, so that the body could just pick up. And that didn't seem to happen for a while. And it seems like all of a sudden, just things turned around and I was able to get off of ECMO. The next day, I was taken off of one machine at a time. And I was able to make it. I was still unconscious, and there are videos that were taken while I was at the hospital after this, where I'm talking. Well, I have a tracheostomy. I'm trying to talk, and I have my eyes looking at the nurse or the doctor. I don't have any recollection of that. I just don't remember. There was a friend that came to visit and stayed for like 2 weeks just to be, with my family and support. I thought he was joking when he told me that he was at the hospital. I don't remember. So there are some good things about, not remembering some things, So I'm thankful that I don't know how that part is just really like, I don't have any recollection.
So you came out of it, but the difficulties didn't just end there. It continued.
Yeah, even before I came out of the hospital, I was told that I was supposed to have this treatment every week for the rest of my life. And a very harsh treatment. And even though I was just coming out of ICU, I didn't think I had it all together. But I'm thankful for that connection with God, that you can have in your mind, even when your body doesn't respond. If your mind is able to listen and to express yourself, even just within yourself with God, that just gives so much power, I would say, and strength to continue on. So I never had to take that treatment. I decided that I wanted to continue with my follow-up with my doctors. All the lab testing was done every 2 weeks. I was very closely monitored, but I wanted to be at home and just to have good food. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I was able to start eating, I was like, yes, yes, that's something. And I was looking forward to that. So, it seems little things, but when you have nothing, it's like little things. If you have the right mindset, I would say, you look at it like, wow, this is amazing. You know, like, what do I want to eat? Okay.
Mm-hmm. The power of gratitude, right? Seeing the small little things.
Thank you for bringing that up, because really that has been something that I say gratitude is the antidote for a bad attitude.
Yes.
Because anyone can be, can have a bad day, and when you are bedbound, when you're suffering with chronic pain, that's very easy to happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that has been something that has also helped me have a growth mindset to every day, have times in which I intentionally look for the things that I have gratitude for. So it's something that is intentional, something that doesn't just happen, because that's not at least my tendency. But it has become more and more my tendency as I've been practicing gratitude. So you can grow in those skills. That's why I love to call them skills, because that gives me the idea, okay, I can learn how to get better at it. Yeah. So if I can learn, then I'm for it,
That's surprising to me, because, I didn't know you during the experience or even before then. So when you say it's not your tendency, I told you this before, I was just so drawn to how much you smiled the time I heard you. And then even just conversing now, I would not expect that at all. So that's really a testimony of how that skill can grow. And in some ways, we internalize that and it becomes a part of who we are.
Yes, definitely. And, I've been through it all. I've always been very careful. What is it that I put in my mind? Because I couldn't choose many, many things I couldn't choose, from my circumstances. But the little things that I could choose, I was very intentional and careful to like watch things and learn things, that I know could help me. Even before I knew that I could, use a wheelchair. I was looking at videos, okay, how do people put wheelchairs on their car? And I was just like, I want to learn, and I think that perspective has really been helpful in not just having like realistic goals, which we all should have, but also kind of those stretch goals that, they are like beyond what you are supposed to do. Like I was not supposed to travel overseas. I did it. And I mean, I am very careful. I planned like everything and all that stuff. But, it's good to kind of getting used to challenging yourself because the way I am right now is not supposed to be the way they told me it was, going to be for the rest of my life when I left the hospital after the septic shock.
What did they tell you?
I was going to be bedbound. And I was going to need the treatment that would lower my immune system every week for the rest of my life. But bedbound for sure. There was a lot of damage all throughout my body that they didn't think that I was not even able to turn in bed by myself. That's how I left the hospital. And little by little, the progress has been made, but I think is also that view of health that is not just, oh, I'm gonna go, PT, like I'm gonna just go for it, give my best. It is in a way like looking at every area of your life, whatever you make better in one area of your life is gonna impact another area. Definitely. So I think taking a hold of that support system and as I said before, not just family and friends, but also therapists, like getting really close, like telling them, like, I dream to do this. When I started telling my physical therapist, like 2 years after I came out of the hospital, that time after the septic shock, hey, I want to start working on driving. I saw in his face, like, he's like, he was not like, he didn't say, no, you cannot do it. But he was like, I don't think you're And, I'm like, let's just try. Let's just start working. What do I need, to get to that point? And it took me a year to get to that point. But, just having that clear aim and the things that you want to do and work for it. And it's not focusing just on the outcome, oh, I want to drive, but everything that I did to be able to do that has helped me in other things, in other ways.
The process.
So whenever you do something, for one area of your life, really, it just trickles over other areas of your life. It has led me to have more confidence on what I can do, more confidence on making challenging steps toward things that maybe are not, I'm not supposed to do. So yeah, it's the process. It is important to have an outcome that you're looking towards to, but at the same time, enjoying the process. And it seems like weird because I don't enjoy pain. Like physical therapy is painful. Going through my emotions, it could be painful too. But I have had to learn to do all those things and just recognizing, hey, this is who I am right now. But I can change. I can grow. I have agency, so I can make choices and decisions that even if they don't get me to the point where I want to be, I will be closer,
Very good perspective,
than if I just don't do anything.
And I love, you said stretch goals because we forget how resilient human beings are. Right? When you look at the documentaries of people who have had different accidents or illnesses or anything that causes them some limitations or difficulties, you can even think about, the Boston marathoners that had that tragic incident and some people learned to walk again. And it's amazing. And a lot of them have similar stories of, others maybe thinking that they couldn't, right? Of like, oh, this is the limit of your recovery. But the power of the mind and setting those, and I love that we have to be realistic too. And that's why we enjoy the process of, even if it's getting closer to that, but sometimes we do surprise ourselves.
Yes, and just knowing that you're doing your best. I think that gives a lot of peace. At the end of the day, I know that today I gave my best. And, I can sleep in peace because I know that with what I had today, I did what I could. And I really tried. And that also gives like that state of just contentment and satisfaction. That is also very important to continue on when things don't take just a few days, just a few weeks or months, but years in the making. You need to have that drive. And that drive is all the things that we've been talking about. It's not just one thing. It's just many things that combined make it so that, as you said, as human beings, we are able to do things that we're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And reading and watching a lot of those stories too, Katie, it's been very important for me. Like what I listen, what I hear is extremely important for me. It's like, if I'm not going to eat just whatever junk food, I want to be healthy, I also want to do the same with my mind. And just from the beginning, choosing those things that would give me hope, that would be, I used to like gardening. So just, here and there watching something, about gardening, thinking, okay, how can I make it? How can I, in my state, do a little bit of what I like, and just feeding your mind with hopeful things, I think is very important.
So, Johanna, one of the most impactful elements of your testimony that I heard of was really focusing on how to make meaning of suffering. It reminds me of a quote that says, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to make meaning." And I like to change that and to say, to thrive in life is to make meaning of that suffering. It's not wasting the pain, but actually using it to fuel our future. And so, how in all these experiences have you been able to make meaning of it and allow it to not just be something of your past, but allow it to continue to help you in your present and future?
Yeah, I think having a double perspective, and what I mean by that is realizing that on this plane of, my body, my mind, things have changed. And but realizing also that there is another perspective, which is in my case a heavenly perspective. And I think God can make and wants to make use of everything that has happened to me for a blessing to me and to make me a blessing to others. So when you combine those two things, when you are able to have that double perspective, I would say, then you are able to see things from a different perspective. And that's some of what I shared on that presentation is just that the cross, at the time that Jesus lived, it was just such a symbol of oppression, of pain, of darkness. But after Jesus resurrected, then it became a sign of hope. And for so many people, for some people, when they see a cross, it's like it gives them meaning. It has something that just gives you hope and a different perspective. And that's something that I think combined with being in the present and just grabbing your reality, but recognizing that what you see, what you smell, what you eat, is just one part of the fullness of the reality that we're given when we believe in God. I think that has been what has helped me see things in a different way and not want to just disassociate myself from what has happened, but kind of embrace it. And for example, my wheelchair could be something like, oh, she's in a wheelchair. For me, the wheelchair is what allows me to be here, what allows me to be able to go places, to travel, to see my family, to, just to do life, So you could see it as, oh, I'm wheelchair bound, or, this thing gives me freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so thankful that I can have one, and I can just do what I want to do, what I need to do. And it's that shift on perspective, that you are tempted to see things, and there are points in my life where I have seen things in a different way. I don't want to paint a picture that it has always been like that, but just recognizing, okay, this is how I think right now, but I have a choice to change the way I think. I have a choice to change the way things are, and even if there are limited choices at a time, if I take a hold of that and I start making right choices for what I want, then I can move forward.
And I love that example of the cross because really it shows us that there's two choices. We can look at something, it's the same exact thing, right? There's no difference in the thing itself, but it's choosing to look at it as a sign of death or a sign of life. And whenever things we go through, we have a choice to respond either of life or of death. Now, one last thing before we close, I have so many more questions, but a resource that you have actually developed and would be great for our listeners to know about.
Well, I created a workbook, and this workbook came about because I just saw a need to have some tools put together, things that helped me, and I wanted to share with other people. So, for example, journaling has been really important for me, just being able to deal with the things on a daily basis, with my feelings, with the things that happened, and kind of go away from ruminating on my thoughts. And when I just put them down, it's like, it's done. I dealt with them and I can rest. My mind can rest. And also art therapy. It's just something you're coloring. I have coloring pages, and it seems like, coloring, why add coloring? But if you think about it, it makes sense that, you're putting your focus into something, and it's that hand-eye brain connection that is very important. And I have found it really helpful for me to just kind of slow down, to concentrate on something that it's going to be beautiful, that kind of puts a hold on my thoughts, helps me just focus on something that is just wholesome. And it has been helpful. My mom was the one who introduced me to just doing things artistically. My background is in engineering, so not artistic at all, but it has been helpful. And it's not about, again, it's not just about the outcome. How beautiful it's going to be, No, it's about the process, and it's very helpful. And of course, things that I have read and have been really encouraging in very difficult points in my life. I think the combination of all those things and guided prayers just make for a resource that I thought would be like a responsibility for me to share with other people.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to include it in our own description so that people can look into it and have this resource for themselves. But thank you so much, Johanna, for coming and sharing a part of your testimony. I know there's so much more, and it's just inspiring to teach us all, because we will all suffer in different ways, of how we can continue to smile, to have hope, to be making the choice of perspective and making meaning of our very difficult life experiences. So thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks for listening. To hear more episodes, find us on social media, or support us financially, visit thebrainpeoplepodcast.com.